Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, and broadcaster. And down through the years, one of my great delights is, if not presenting radio programs about the music I love, then being asked to discuss it on someone else's radio show. What follows is one such clip of myself and Mike Murphy, Ireland's greatest art show presenter ever, discussing something I wrote about during my 10-year tenure with the Irish Times. You see, during that decade, the 1990s, I also happened to be the popular music correspondent for the art show on RTE Radio 1. And both that station and the Irish Times like to see themselves as the radio station and newspaper of record, respectively. These programme segments, and sometimes full shows, would usually occur after Mike read an article I wrote and phoned me to appear on the programme, or after I myself would recommend an item that might be of interest to our listeners, and even provide a script, around which Mike and I would happily improvise. By the way, if you want to read some of the articles I wrote about music, the arts and popular culture in general, plus politics, check out my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.
But first, lest we forget or ignore them, Joe Jackson is here to remind us of the enduring greatness of two singers, Doris Day and Tony Bennett, as well as Johnny Mathis, and we're going to play a few songs of the aforementioned. Joe, this is prompted by an article you wrote in the Irish Times, in which you said that we more or less should reassess the enduring value of these performers. And you accorded Doris Day a stature that I think a lot of people might not have heretofore accorded her.
Which is?
Well, I mean, that you say she's an important singer. You also said she's unbearably sensual, which we'll come to in a few minutes. But,
okay, well, just
talk about her as a singer first.
No, I think as a vocalist. I mean, one of these albums, which is the two albums, these are double album reissues brought out now on a kind of mid-price label. So the two original albums, these ones are from the 1950s. And Day by Day, at the time, was rated by Bing Crosby as a masterpiece of intimacy and phrasing. And I think if you divorce the image of Doris Day, the movie star, from Doris Day, the singer, people tend to focus only on the singer. If you listen in the track we're about to play to that sense of intimacy she creates when she's singing, it's very like Crosby and Sinatra changed the style of popular singing by making it caressive, by making it one person whispering in the ear of another. And nobody does that as well as Day in light love songs. Peggy Lee followed the same route. But there is that kind of wonderful phrasing, breath control, and the way even the lyric is placed in the music, the way the music caresses the words and the sense of the song. I mean, I think she's just as a technical singer. And I also know more and more people realize it's now hip or it's acceptable for female singers to say, I was influenced by Billie Holiday. Yes, we've been getting for years. But now to say, and Doris Day.
And Doris Day.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. The colour line breaking down, which I think is great.
Yeah, it is. We'll have a listen now and then we'll speak further. All right, Joe Jackson, lovely version of But Not For Me. I quite agree with you.
Right.
Minimal backing there, very tasteful, attractive backing. And she's very confident in the way she approaches the song and phrases it, smiles her way through it.
Sounds like a butt is coming up.
But Doris Day is kind of renowned for the Deadwood stage. It's a rolling all over the hills. Isn't it true? And then you in your article said that these two Doris Day albums do capture her unbearably sensual vocals. Now, I would have thought that Doris Day competed with June Allison and Debbie Reynolds for the most asexual woman of her time, certainly in the public persona. Would you? You obviously disagree.
I obviously don't. Well, it depends on, maybe Mike, you spent too much time watching those movies on television, of course. You weren't around when they were first released, obviously not, okay? So I think you're misjudging her in her suede leather suit sitting on the stage, whip cracking away out of town at the end of Calamity Jane. But if you can divorce that image, and if you can just listen to the sound of her voice, I mean, even the way she said love in that song, it's very sensual. It's like, I don't want to be sexist, but a lover's fingers caressing your neck. I get that feeling from listening to Doris Day. When I divorce what I'm hearing from the predominant image of her in the public eye, which is Calamity Jane and those kind of, more so the Rock Hudson movies, where she was and is now known as the Eternal Virgin. But they came in the 60s, and that image has swept away these 50s recordings. And also, if you look at something like the movie she made where she sings the song 10 Cents a Dance.
Yeah, Ruth Etting. Wasn't that about Ruth Etting?
Love Me or Leave Me.
Great.
I mean,
that was marvellous.
But I think in that, but also in that, even when she just stands there very still and sings 10 cents a dance, which is about women who are being bought and are being sold.
Yeah.
Like there's a dynamism which is it's like Grace Kelly in a Hitchcock movie. Is she antiseptic or is she sexual? It depends on your tastes, Mike.
Rightio. Well, I'm certainly
Quickly
not
moving on.
I won't be fingering your neck lightly while we're listening to the next one. But
I'm
here she
glad
is again
I'm going.
anyway with But Beautiful. Well, now there's Doris Day and But Beautiful. So, Joe, you're doing a serious reassessment of Doris Day here, and it seems other people are as well, aren't they?
Oh yeah, one aspect, but this is something that I'm sorry hasn't bubbled more to the surface in relation to a feminist reappraisal of Day's work was done about 10 years ago by the British Film Institute, in which they analysed the role she played in movies, and even in the movies we were talking about before that we played the song. If she was the eternal virgin, and the question was, will Rock Hudson get her into bed before the end of the movie? The point was, she was in control until she decided, yes, he will. And it was her choice by the end of the movie. And in that Love Me or Leave Me movie and a Hitchcock movie, which I can't remember what the title of it was, she always played a strong, forceful woman. And the other aspect to her life, which is not well documented, but is the fact that she had a quite horrendous marriage to a band leader who beat her. And that's why I wanted to pick
Artie Shaw.
Artie Shaw, yeah. He physically beat her. And when you hear Billie Holiday singing But Beautiful, you do think of the marriage upset. You think of the drug addiction. You think of the tragedy. When Doris Day sings it there, which is like 8 years after this horrendous marriage, she transcends the tragedy. I mean, she's singing Love is Beautiful, and you do get the sense she still believes it, even if 8 years before that she was beaten quiet. She's concealing, but she's concealing or she's transcending it, depending on what you hear. I think she's transcending it so we all can gain access to the song. Some people can't get into Billie Holiday because it's too tragic.
All right, let's move on. Tony Bennett. Okay. Now you talk about a reassessment. I mean, Tony Bennett must wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, what happened to me that I'm getting yet another go at my career?
Absolutely. No, he's now 67 years old. I mean, he did a concert in the concert hall last year. It was one of the best gigs I saw throughout the year. It's said that he's going to sweep through the pop rock section and win a Grammy this year, which will be his second Grammy in 3 years because he got the Lifetime Achievement Award the year I was over there with the Chieftains, which was 2 years ago. And he's turning up now on MTV. He turned up on the Unplugged series, and that's the album which may win the best pop album of the year, which is astounding.
So
I mean, this is a man who...
Alfie.
This is the man who, like 1952... I mean, even his role in rock in creating rock, I interviewed him at Christmas time, is quite important, in that when he recorded Cold Cold Heart by Hank Williams in 1952, and that's how far back his career goes as a hit singer, he opened the eyes of record companies to the fact that so-called race music can be popular outside the areas in which it's created, as in whether it's white country is not only popular in the South, that you could take black race music. And this is what led on to the advent of rock, rhythm and blues and those things opening up. And he also claims that he and Johnny Ray, which is probably true, influenced the element of that kind of operatic approach to interpreting a song. Like he would take a song, he's a student of jazz and he's a student of painting. The way Bennett approaches a song is the way Art Tatum played piano, which is you make like an epic out of a note. You kind of explore it and explode it in as many ways as you can. Yeah. And he also, because he's an exhibited painter, he tends to have, and he works very closely with arrangers. He thinks of the voice as the color red, and you'll set black and blue against that.
Yeah.
So he thinks of everything, and he says like he paints like he sings, and he sings like he paints.
That's why
so you do get the sense.
That's why you have said if this is middle of the road music, then Monet was a middle of the road painter.
Well, you see, I think this kind of music, it's like the reason it's I think so downgraded in cultural analysis that is it's always there in the elevator, it's always there in the supermarket. Yes. I wish they'd pick another kind of music. I mean, there are certain styles of rock music, rap music, dance, hip-hop, which are as much middle of the road within their genres as this is deemed to be by so-called rock critics. Now, I think we've become almost immune to its power and poetry and potential because it's played so often in the background. I almost wish they would slap a ban on it and people would be made listen to it on programmes instead.
Well, we're going to listen to Tony Bennett now. This is If I Love Again. Why this track and what are we to look out for here?
Well, again, I think it's the same thing. I think just in terms of... when I was listening to the Day track earlier, I was thinking of a comment Crosby said about why he chose, I can't remember who the arranger was who did a lot of his ballads, but to set the voice in the most unobtrusive setting as possible, whereby the meaning of the song was of paramount importance and nothing got in the way of that. And the instruments lay back on the right phrases, like the right words, the right syllables. And I think the way they've arranged If I Love Again just captures an amazingly bittersweet quality. And in terms of the way he's singing, I think it's as technically perfect as Miles Davis, playing his instrument, or Art Tatum playing piano. It's astounding singing. You just listen to it.
Now, Joe Jackson, there's a new album as well from Johnny Mathis, and I gather you feel it doesn't compare as well as the other two. But it's interesting, Joe, that a music critic of your generation is taking music like this, taking another and a fresh look at it. There can't be too many music critics, rock critics like yourself who are doing this.
Yeah. Now, this is the greatest legacy I got. My father died very young. He was 49. And he loved this. I grew up listening to this music as much as I grew up listening to the Stones and then Bowie in the early 70s. Because my dad played this all the time. In fact, these Mathis albums I still have as part of his collection. And this is why I think there's a kind of snobbery towards it. But to me, and I think music should begin to be reassessed all told in this way, that the importance of music is not only in terms of its aesthetic value, but also what it reflects of the people who consumed it, produced it, bought it, lived by it, have memories that evolve or involve, we'd say. You mentioned you buying
yeah, it was
something
the second
wonderful.
record I ever bought. Was something wonderful by Johnny Mathis.
But you see, if somebody comes along and says that aesthetically is not his best cut, it doesn't matter a damn to you. What matters is the fact that the second record, and forevermore you'll remember it, and it's hugely important to you. And I think there are people who will listen to Bennett singing If I Love Again or Doris Day and say, well, that is a huge cultural, social, romantic signifier for me.
Sure.
So I think this is a way of analysing what this music is.
Okay, talk about Mathis then, right? You're saying this is not one of his best, but you are still saying, though, that he was one of the best singers of his time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that something wonderful. I mean, the album that was then, his greatest hits collection, stayed in the American charts for 11 years. Nobody ever talks about who else stayed in the American charts for 11 years. Johnny Mathis's greatest hits, the first volume, which has all those wonderful songs like Chances Are, 12th of Never, the early songs. And I think they are, again, impeccable singing. I mean, they're a bit over the top the way he sings in the original albums, but an album like Warm, with Percy Faith doing the arrangements, is a wonderful concept album. People don't even acknowledge that Mathis, Day and those were doing concept albums in the 50s.
Okay, we're going to hear Midnight Cowboy in 1 second, but you have 20 seconds to tell us about Dial a Track in the Irish Times, which is just a fascinating little departure for the paper. Go on.
I think it's great. Now, what happens is whenever records are reviewed in the Irish Times, there is now a facility whereby you can phone a particular number which is given in the newspaper and hear the songs, and you can either agree or disagree with the reviewer, not just the section I do, but anybody's. And maybe next time they're going to put a little answer machine on it. You can leave abuse for the reviewer if you really don't agree with what they say.
All right, we're finishing this item with Midnight Cowboy.
All right.
Good song, and Johnny Mathis. And Joe Jackson, thank you very much.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. And don't forget, if you want to read any of my articles, check out my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.